Hi everyone and welcome. We're in my wormery and I'm at my at one of my finishing tubs. I've decided that it's time to bring a close to my finishing of my compost and my finishing tubs. This is an example of one of my finishing tubs. All I did was at the end of a composting session, I had taken the material that I considered to be finished compost and I placed them into a couple of these tubs, the ones that are right behind me on the shelf, and this is one of them that was there. And I was given these bins some time to allow any remaining cocoons that might have still been in the material to hatch out, and any straggler worms that were in the material to kind of be rounded up. I tried doing kind of a bait bomb approach of trying to round up the worms to bait them out of the material. And I've actually still got one of those bait bombs active in my last bin over there, which we're going to fish out now. At that point, that's the last of the bins that I'm going to be considering is done. And all I'm going to be doing is taking the material out of these bins and putting them into these buckets for storage. I've got two of these buckets. I don't know if we're going to fill one of them up. I've got a second one just in case we do. Let's just go ahead and empty these out and check out how the material looks, and maybe we'll even see some worms when we go to empty out the last bin that still has that bait bomb in it. So let's take a closer look. Alright, so I'm just going to tip my bucket over here and start scooping it in. But before we do that, let's just take a quick probe through. This material's been sitting here for some time now, and it's not the best vermicompost that I've ever made. I can still see there are some pumpkin seeds in here. The entire material seems to have this little bit of a white kind of a haze to it. I'm wondering what that is. There's also kind of a little bit of a musty smell to it. I'm wondering if the material has started to develop some mold or something in it. I'm wondering if that's even going to be a problem. I'm sure if there was worms in it, they would be eating the mold up, but there's nothing in this material now. There hasn't been for some time. Well, I'll start scooping it because I don't know if I can pour all of it, but I'm going to start scooping it off. And once I'm down to just a little bit, I could pour the remainder of it. I just don't want to accidentally spill any, make a big mess. So we're kind of getting down to the bottom here. Maybe I can just dump the rest of it out at this point. This isn't really the kind of compost that I'm really gonna want to write home about. Wouldn't say it's the best results that I've had. But I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed and hope that it's still usable. So I guess if you've ever had a batch that had these sort of indications that it might be a little bit of mold, or not even sure if it's, not even sure what it is exactly, but if you've ever seen or experienced this in your vermicompost, then I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what your experiences were with it. If it's bad, if it's a bad idea to use this stuff, or if it's fine. So definitely please make a comment if you have any knowledge about what it is that I might be seeing and smelling here. Okay. So I'm going to tip up my bucket and spill over the rest. Alright, there we got the most of it. We'll just rinse this out. So that filled up, I'd say maybe a quarter of this bucket, not even. Let's go grab the other one. Alright, so now this one, let's see here. This stuff doesn't have that kind of musty odor to it like the first one did. And the material doesn't have that kind of white, hazy appearance to it either. So this is probably in slightly better shape. Okay. So now this material too, you know, it's like the other one that you saw. It's got seeds in it. I think these are melon seeds, cantaloupe melon seeds. See a little pill bug walking around in here. So let's just take a quick probe through this material and see how it looks. This material has a little bit more of a dark appearance to it. It doesn't have that white kind of haze to it. And since that's what I'm seeing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this first bucket and rest it aside. And I'm going to go grab a fresh bucket into which we'll put this material and try to keep these separate just in case that first batch is not quite right. I'll wait to see what some of you guys say in your comments to let me know your thoughts on what I should do with that first batch. This stuff looks a lot nicer. It's got a nice color to it, nice odor to it, and I just don't want to contaminate it in case that first batch is not quite right. So let's go get the other bucket and we'll empty this one too. Okay, so once again I'll just rest this bucket on here. Let's move this over a little bit, give myself a little space to work. Bring the camera over as well, and we'll just start shoveling this stuff out as well. I can just pour out the remainder of this now. Okay, just see if we can jostle some of this remaining material loose. Shake that out as well. I think we got the majority of it, so let's go get the last one. Okay, so the paper on this one is a little bit tattered, and I mean, for that matter, the handle on this one is pretty beat as well, so I might be kind of demoting this tray, use it for something other than vermicomposting. So let's take a peek at how things are looking here. They just seem to get better and better as we get along. This the material in this tray seems even nicer than the last two that we just looked at. We've still got ourselves what appear to be pumpkin seeds trying to sprout here. Let's just crush these up and we'll throw them into one of my bins as worm food. Okay, so I've got a little tray here, and we're going to use this tray to fetch this bait bomb. So like I mentioned earlier, I've got a bait bomb that I placed down into this tray in the attempt to try to lure the last of whatever worms I can out of this material. It was a week ago today, 7 days ago, that I put this bait bomb in here. What this consisted of was just a piece of newspaper into which I had placed a piece of watermelon, and from the feel, I mean, from what I could tell, it doesn't feel like a piece of watermelon in here. So we'll just place that over here. I guess before I kind of write this material off as a finished batch of compost, I might as well try to fetch a couple of these last few straggly worms hanging out down here and keep them with the bait bomb, because then I'll go ahead and I'll drop this bait bomb and piece of newspaper into an active bin and give these worms a chance to keep working my worm farm here. And I guess all the rest of the worms that remain in the material will, I guess, be set free once this compost gets used somewhere outside in the garden. So they've kind of lucked out. They get to go have a new adventure outside in the garden and go live free outside and experience life on the outside. So whatever. Let's just leave it at that. Whatever remaining worms are still in this material, they get to go free once this material gets used outside in the garden. So the material is really nice. It's a little bit damp over here on the edge, which is kind of good as well. The other material in the other two bins is a bit dry. And it feels pretty good, so I don't think it's got that kind of musty odor or look to it like the first bin did. So I feel okay going ahead and dumping it into this bucket here along with the rest of the material that we just scooped out of the last tray. So let's go ahead and set up the bucket over here and start scooping out what we've got. Let's get this out of here. Well, it looks like I can no longer add any more to this bucket with it tipped over like this because it's just spilling out the side at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and stand the bucket upright and see if I could just pour what remains in this over into the bucket. Let's see how that goes. Hopefully there's room for it. Okay, well, guess what? It looks like it's making it in. Looks like we're able to fit it all. Perfect. Nice job. I just have this little piece of paper that I usually rest on top of the material. I have this, this is an interesting lid for this container because it's, I guess it's got this feature that it clips on one side and then it opens up. It has this ability to hinge open for easy access and snap shut. What I like about this is it's important to let your material air out, or not air out, but breathe. So you don't want to seal your container shut when you've got vermicompost in a bucket, because I did that once and I regretted it because the basically it got no air and that smelled terrible when it was all said and done. So don't let that happen to your vermicompost. So all right, cool. One complete harvest. So basically one full bucket, and what we have down here is a little bit in this this other one. So this is that questionable material, whether it's going to be good or not. But I'm going to hang on to it. Hopefully it's okay. So what remains now is the bait bomb and some of these sprouts that we're going to throw into the active bin as well as food. So I want to go get one of my active bins, probably get one of my newer bins, and we'll put these in here and we'll get a chance to see what's inside. And what you're seeing here on top is the deployment of some diatomaceous earth. I had seen mites in here the last time I fed, and it looks like I'm still seeing them. I can see them crawling around on the wet portion of the newspaper, and I'm just curious. See some of them crawling around here on this cardboard as well. So I guess it's not really producing the results I had hoped for. What I had hoped for was no more mites, but as you can see here on the wet part of the newspaper, there's mites crawling all over the place. But the one thing I am noticing is that around the perimeter, wherever there is diatomaceous earth, you don't see any mites. So it does seem like the mites are maintaining kind of a focus on this internal area where the moisture and the paper is, but it doesn't seem like they're wandering outside, kind of treating the diatomaceous earth as sort of a perimeter that maybe they don't like or can't stand. So maybe to some degree it is working. Maybe the newspaper is good from the point of view that it's drawing the mites out, and the diatomaceous earth is kind of keeping them contained. So whatever, not quite the perfect world yet. Maybe it really is just a matter of you know, following some people's instructions and input, which is to forget about the diatomaceous earth and try to deal with the mites by simply trying to dry the material within the container out, because the mites are drawn to the high moisture levels. Here we've got a couple more sprouts that we can just return to the bin after we've crushed them and let them resume their lives as worm food. So whatever, for now I'm not going to deal with the mites so much. The mites are sort of an ongoing saga from another video, and this was really just a matter of wanting to bring closure to my finishing tubs. So for now, all we're going to worry about is deploying this this bait bomb and releasing the worms that it gathered. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of poke a little hole down here into the material just to take a peek at how the feeding zone is coming along. So I might actually be feeding these bins tomorrow. Tomorrow will have been 8 days since the last time I fed. Let's see. Wow, yeah. These mango seeds are always really popular. The worms just love to get down in there. I'm just going to move things aside a little bit here. Create a little hole down here in the middle. And then we can take our bait bomb, make sure we've emptied the tray, and inspect the contents. We'll see how it came along. Right, once again, I see no signs whatsoever of the watermelon rind that was in here, and it was a pretty good sized chunk too. And it was only placed in here a week ago, and every stitch of it is gone. Not even a scrap of it. So they really like the watermelon rind. So you can see how many worms I was able to gather with this device. Not too many, but then again, the finished compost in that tub may not have even had that many more worms in it. So this is a success from where I stand. Definitely see worms of all sizes and shapes. Some of them are very small. Some of them are a little bit larger and more mature. But you can see they're all trying to get away from the bright light. So whatever, I don't want to continue causing them discomfort by being out here in the bright light. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this newspaper right down into the feeding zone over here and let it continue its service as bedding for this bin. And we'll just go ahead and cover things here back up the way they were before we came poking around in here. So yeah, if you're following my videos and you're providing input on the mites and tracking how my mite situation is progressing, then you'll know that I've been kind of reacting to the presence of mites in my bins. And it's part of the reason all I had on the top of this was a piece of newspaper. The idea here was to kind of let this material start to dry out a little bit. It's been extremely humid lately, so it's unlikely that anything's going to dry off very quickly. So whatever, might just take time. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Otherwise, just from poking around in here, it does look like this bin's doing quite nicely. Like I said, I'm not going to try to deal with the mites right now. I'm just going to go ahead and put this piece of paper right back where it is. Let the mites keep crawling around. I mean, it's not a lot of them, and I guess some people even suggested that the mites are kind of helper inhabitants of the bin. So for them to be in here, it's not even that big of a deal. So maybe maybe I am overreacting. I don't know. But for now, I think we're just going to close up shop here and call it a day. So thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate your company, and any input that you have or suggestions, I definitely want to hear them. Please drop them into the comments below, and I always do my best to respond to most if not all comments. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. I always really appreciate that. Thumbs ups are always awesome to see, and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. Alright everyone, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.